who hates when I win. The winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces.
Let's talk about the chaos surrounding Disney's latest Snow White debacle. It's a wild ride. Everyone who hates it when I come out on top with my winged victory moment showed up to this mess in pieces. And yet people are still lining up to gawk at the wreckage. What a fool I've been, honestly, looking back as someone young in this game, no filter, no clue what I'm doing half the time, and now Disney's gone and dropped another bombshell. They're remaking Snow White again. Yeah, you heard that right. After all the drama, the headlines, the fan outrage, they're hitting reset. But let's be real. It's not looking good for Rachel Zegler, the actress who's been at the center of this storm. She's been through an absolute nightmare, mostly self-inflicted thanks to her sharp-tongued takes on the original film. And now, after months of controversy, Disney's decided to cut her loose. Rachel Zegler's journey with this project has been a roller coaster, to put it mildly. She was supposed to be the fresh face of this live-action Snow White, a modern twist on a timeless classic. The focus, we were told, was going to be heavy on her character's love story. Except it wasn't the sweet fairy tale romance fans expected. Instead, it leaned into this weird, almost uncomfortable dynamic with a guy who, let's just say, comes off more like a stalker than a Prince Charming. Strange choice, right? Rachel didn't help herself either. She spent months defending this vision, doubling down on her criticisms of the 1937 original, calling it outdated and irrelevant. That didn't sit well with fans, and the backlash grew louder by the day. Sources close to the actress say she was blindsided when Disney finally pulled the plug. Devastated even. She'd put so much energy into pushing back against the haters, trying to sell this reimagined Snow White as something bold and necessary. But in the end, even Disney lost faith in her and the project. Since the news broke that the studio was moving on and hunting for a new Snow White, Rachel's gone radio. Silent. Not a peep. It's like she knows opening her mouth now would only fan the flames. After all the backlash she's faced, she's probably well aware that Hollywood isn't exactly lining up to cast her in anything big anytime soon. Whether she admits it or not, her name's now tied to one of Disney's messiest PR disasters in years. Insiders have even called her a walking PR nightmare for the studio. At first, Disney tried to play it cool, staying quiet while the storm brewed. But behind the scenes, things were shifting fast. Rachel, who'd been front and center as the face of the movie, started vanishing from promotional events. The studio, which had been hyping her up as the next big Disney princess, suddenly couldn't distance themselves fast enough. Whispers started circulating that Disney was rethinking the whole direction of the film, and now the official word is out, they're rebooting Snow White from scratch with a totally different vision. This isn't just a tweak or a recast. This is a full-on course correction. No more of that modern feminist revisionism, no more girl boss narrative that rewrote Snow White into something unrecognizable. Disney's made a sharp U-turn, announcing they're going back to the roots of the 1937 animated classic. They want to recapture that old-school magic that made the original so beloved. It's a massive shift, especially considering just a few months ago, they were out there defending this new version as a necessary update for today's audiences. But the backlash was relentless. Fans weren't having it. They didn't want a Snow White who bore no resemblance to the character they grew up with. They didn't want a fairy tale stripped of its heart and replaced with something that felt forced and preachy. Social media lit up with accusations that Disney was shoving unnecessary feminism into a story that didn't need it, and the studio finally had to face the music. The numbers didn't lie either. Test screenings for the Ziggler-led version were a disaster. Audiences hated it. Early merchandise tied to the film tanked hard, with toys and collectibles gathering dust on shelves. Even at Disney's own theme parks, where nostalgia usually sells like hotcakes, there was zero buzz for anything Snow White related. The negative feedback online, the abysmal sales, the complete rejection from fans, it all piled up until Disney had no choice but to admit they'd misfired. Now, with this new reboot, they've got a rare second shot to get it right. But what's actually changing this time around? What's the plan to win back the fans they've alienated? For starters, Disney's doubling down on what made the original a classic. One of the biggest controversies with the scrapped version was their decision to ditch the Seven Dwarfs. Instead, they'd cooked up this group of diverse mystical beings that had almost nothing in common with the iconic characters fans knew and loved. It was a bold move and a bad one. People were furious. Even actor Peter Dinklage waded into the debate, questioning whether axing the dwarfs was really the progressive win Disney thought it was. The backlash was so intense that it became a symbol of everything wrong with the project. Now, Disney's reversing that call. The dwarfs are back, and from what we're hearing, they're sticking close to their classic designs and personalities. No more CGI-heavy replacements. Just the characters as they were always meant to be. The love story's getting a reset, too. Rachel Zegler's most infamous hot take was trashing the romance between Snow White and the prince. She called him a creepy stalker, argued the love story was outdated, and insisted Snow White didn't need a man to complete her arc. That might have sounded edgy in an interview, but it didn't land with fans who see the romance as a core piece of the fairy tale. Stripping it out didn't just change the plot, it gutted the essence of Snow White's character. Disney's heard the complaints loud and clear, and this time, they're keeping the love story intact. No more anti-romance weirdness. Just the classic, swoony dynamic that's been part of the tale since day one. And here's the cherry on top. The music's coming back. Early reports say this new version will lean hard into the original soundtrack, bringing back fan-favorite songs like Someday My Prince Will Come and Whistle While You Work. The Ziggler version had been tinkering with the score, rewriting it to fit a more modern vibe, but that's out the window now. Disney's betting big on nostalgia, hoping those timeless tunes will pull fans back into the fold. It's a smart move. Those songs are woven into the DNA of the original, and ditching them was just another misstep in a long line of missteps. But here's the million-dollar question. Will this be enough to win back the old fans? Or has Disney burned too many bridges? The studio's been on a rocky streak lately, churning out live-action reboots that often miss the mark. They've lost a lot of goodwill with audiences who feel like these remakes keep missing what made the originals special. After the train wreck of the last Snow White attempt, some fans might not be willing to give them another chance. There's still so much up in the air. Entire scenes could get scrapped, new ones could be added, and who knows what'll happen. When the cameras start rolling again, it's Hollywood after all. Anything can change in a heartbeat. When Disney first announced this live-action Snow White with Rachel Zegler, they thought they were onto something groundbreaking. They picked a young, outspoken actress and pitched the movie as a fresh, bold take on the 1937 classic. But then Rachel started doing interviews, and that's when the wheels came off. She didn't hold back, mocking the original film, saying she wasn't even a fan of it, and dropping lines like, "If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour it's streamed online." Oof. That's not the kind of energy Disney fans wanted from their Snow White. Instead of embracing the fairy tale's legacy, she talked about turning the princess into a girl boss who didn't need love and was all about leadership. It might have worked for a different story. But for Snow White, it felt like a betrayal of everything the character stood for. Fans didn't take it lying down. They called her out for disrespecting a cornerstone of Disney's history, and the backlash snowballed from there. Rachel tried to backtrack, apologizing and saying she didn't mean to offend anyone, but the damage was done. Disney initially stayed quiet, hoping it'd blow over, but behind closed doors, things were falling apart. Test screenings were a wake-up call. Audiences trashed the film, calling it soulless and disconnected from the classic they loved. The visuals, the tone, the absence of the dwarfs replaced by some CGI-heavy magical creatures. It was all wrong. Casual fans and diehards alike were left wondering why this movie even existed. Then came the merchandise flop. Disney rolled out toys, books, and collectibles, expecting a big payday, but they couldn't move the stuff. Retailers were stuck. With unsold stock, and even at the parks, where Disney usually cashes in on nostalgia, the Snow White hype was non-existent. It was a disaster on par with some of their worst live-action misfires. Think Dumbo levels of bad, but maybe even worse. The writing was on the wall, and Disney had to act. Cutting Rachel Zegler was the final nail in the coffin for that version of the film.